Hey everyone, this is Andiva. I'd like to share with the World of Warcraft community something that I personally think hasn't happened to nobody in this game. What I will talk about is my story of how I obtained very low drop chance and also very hard to find mounts in a very short period of time. In YouTube, before 4 years ago, there was a video published about the extreme luck of another player by the name of Tyros, who proclaimed himself as the luckiest WoW player. But today, I will share my experience of how I got many rare drop mounts and I surpassed his incredible luck. Before I go further into the story, I'd like to share with the audience my road with rare mounts. I joined retail in July of 2016, but then Warlords of Draenor was still the current expansion, so I felt very disappointed from what I'd seen and shortly after I stopped playing WoW. Later in the early 2017, in January, I came back to the game and from then I started playing serious. I always wanted to have some special mount that I can know that it has a value, something that I've put a lot of work in, time and effort. I wanted a rare mount. There were 4 mounts I wanted in this game and they were Invincible, Fiery Warhorse and the 2 mounts from Firelands, the Pureblood Firehawk and Flame Talon of Alisrazor. I farmed them every week with multiple characters, but I had no luck. Back then I had around 50 or 60 mounts and they were completely random, that had no price at all. At some point, I felt so frustrated with how miserable my stable of mounts was that I decided to buy a game shop mount. It was the Warforged Nightmare. I can't lie that it was a really good looking mount compared to what I had, so I definitely loved every pixel of it and to this day I still use it because that was my first ever mount that I really enjoyed riding. Around the summer of 2017, my friends began doing Glory of the Thundering Rider achievement, and one day they invited me to go with them, so I went. It was a mix of maybe the hardest achievements in any raid, so we weren't able to complete them from the first try. My friends were very excited to see if the 2 mounts from Throne of Thunder would drop, while I wasn't that excited because I simply didn't find them appealing, even though they were also rare. It actually took us several tries each week until we completed the Glory of the Thundering Rider. But during one of those tries, while we were casually talking about our own stuff, we killed the first boss and moved on to the second, Horidon. Nobody of us needed any achievement from Horidon, so we ended him fast. Then, one of my friends freaked out and said that the mount dropped. At first, I didn't believe and I looked at what dropped. I didn't even know what to look for because I haven't even seen the icon of how the mount would look like. Then I realized it actually dropped and I was very happy to witness a rare mount dropping in front of my own eyes. Everyone rode and from 3 people I won the mount. I felt happy, but it wasn't a mount that I actually desired to have, unlike my friends who were so hyped to see it drop. They offered me game time and tried different ways to make me trade them the mount. In the end, I called my oldest friend who has tons of rare mounts and I asked him if I should trade the mount to one of my friends in exchange of what they've offered me. He told me to keep the mount for myself, and that's what I did. It was my first ever rare mount. Everyone in the guild congratulated me for it and I really felt that this mount is actually worth something. So that day, my rare mount path began. Later that summer, since my main is a demon hunter, I farmed over 50 times Black Temple for the Warglaives of Azeroth, and I really wanted them since the time-walking Black Temple was released and demon hunters could transmogrify the legendary Warglaives, which was something epic for me. 1 month before time-walking Black Temple was released, I looted the first Warglaive, and on the next week I looted the second one. Around of October, I looted in 2 weeks the Pureblood Firehawk and the Flame Talon of Alisrazor. But if only I knew that I won't see any rare mounts drop until this year. I stayed almost all year subscribed and I continued to farm weekly with multiple characters, but as expected, there was nothing new. Around Christmas, I began doing with a friend the Legion Glory achievements for the Grove Defiler and the Antoran Charhound. I felt like it was time to get some new mounts. If the raid ones wouldn't drop for me, then I'd get those who were awarded from the achievements. And so I did. I was pleased with the new mounts, but still, the feeling of looting something very rare was missing. In January of 2018, the unthinkable happened. Me and a friend decided one night to go do mount runs, so we started off with Ice Crown Citadel. That night, the mount dropped. I was so shocked that it actually happened. Me and my friend went completely insane. I was so scared to roll for the mount because I didn't know how I would feel if I actually lose Invincible, which I dreamed of. I literally had dreams of getting it. Sadly, that night I lost to my friend. I remember that night that I was on a call with my girlfriend, and when the mount dropped, I completely lost my mind, and I didn't even realize when she closed the call. I totally forgot about her, and after I lost the mount, a couple of minutes later I started getting back to reality, and I realized that her voice was actually missing from my headphones. I knew that night that I wouldn't see Invincible drop for the next couple of years, because that's what rare mounts do. I posted a picture of the mount dropping in the guild Discord group, in the Facebook group chats, and everyone was so amazed to see Invincible drop. The same night we went to Throne of Thunder and Clutch of Ji-Kun dropped. I was completely mind blown because it was another very rare mount. This time I was the winner. At the end of the night my friend was playing with Invincible and I was playing with Ji-Kun. On 10th of February I had holidays after my university exams, so I stayed up late until 4 AM and I decided to try and get the Fiery Warhorse from Karazhan. The mount dropped. I was alone with nobody else around me and I couldn't believe that it was mine. It was my first feat of strength mount, so I felt a huge accomplishment. I finally had a feat of strength mount. It wasn't only rare, but it also awarded an achievement. My friends had this mount from only a couple of tries, and for them it didn't mean much, but for me it meant a lot because I tried it so many times and finally it was mine. Between 10th of February and 1st of March I got the Blue Drake and the Acer Drake from Eye of Eternity. On 1st of March the ridiculousness began happening. On that day I got my Raven Lord. I probably have killed it around 2 or 3 times overall, and I decided randomly one day to just go there and it unexpectedly dropped. On the very next day I looted the Reigns of the Astral Serpent. It was the Pandaria mount I desired the most. 4 days later, Invincible dropped. I looted it with my Fury Warrior, who had a transmog that I realized it fitted the Prestige horse perfectly. With the challenge artifact appearances and Invincible, I looked stunning and incredible. That night I realized I didn't care anymore about any other mount because I had Invincible. It was the mount I always wanted. It was finally mine. It was Wednesday, so the race will reset. Something was telling me that if I got Invincible, maybe it's my lucky night, so I had to try out another mount. So I decided to go to the nearest raid, Vault of Arcavon, to attempt and loot the Grand Black War Mammoth. I haven't really attempted to farm that mount, but the same night Invincible dropped I got as well the Grand Black War Mammoth. I felt finally satisfied with the mounts I had, so I felt there's no need to try and get more mounts. Days passed and I started thinking over how lucky I was with getting 2 feet of strength mounts in 1 minute. how I got the Raven Lord and the Astral Serpent in 2 days. 4 days after I looted Invincible and Grand Black War Mammoth, I decided to get the extremely rare mount called Rivendare's Death Charger. After I came back from the university, on my way to Stratholme, there were people outside of the dungeon talking about how many times they've tried to get the mount. I just passed by them and saw the chat for a second, but I ignored them and went inside the dungeon. Then somebody whispered me and asked me how many tries I've done so far, and I told him that I've attempted it a couple of times, but I really had no hope to get that mount since it's unbelievably rare. As we were talking, he shared how lucky he was lately with mounts, but it wasn't even close to what I've gotten so far. I replied to him that I'm also lucky these days with mounts. I suggested him to come in my group and try to get the mount, since I felt like mounts drop more often when there are more people in the group. He agreed, so I told him to wait me outside because I had to finish the run. I reached Baron Rivendare and killed him. I didn't believe my own eyes. First try for the day. Death Charger's reins was in front of me. My hands began shaking uncontrollably, and I barely wrote to that person that I just looted Death Charger's reins. What if I invited that person into the group and he received the mount? I don't know if I could have bared such a loss. On the next day, after another exhausting long lectures at university, I came back home and went to Magister's Terrace. Again, first try, Swift White Hawk Strider was mine. First try on that day. The funny thing was that it wasn't the mount I've seeked, and it randomly just went inside my bag without any effort. Another feat of strength mount. I screenshotted it and shared it in a Facebook group chat, and a friend of mine called me on the phone, shocked by my luck. He challenged me to go to Ulduar for Mimiron's cat, but I told him that it's a raid I'm too lazy to farm, because it's long and I think that this mount is ridiculously ugly looking and stupid, and I didn't even care if it was a feat of strength mount and a rare one. I just didn't had any wish to farm that mount, but in the end I told him I'll go and do Ulduar, and attempt to get Mimiron's cat. On the next day I went to Ulduar and Mimiron's cat dropped. I wasn't excited about it, but I was happy to see my friends' reactions. I did it for the walls. I didn't care about the ugly looking mount. Everyone got so pissed off and didn't know what's going on with me getting all these mounts lately. I realized I got quite rare and special mounts from Wrath of the Lich King, so I decided this time not to go to some raid and get a mount. I decided to farm Time Lost Proto-Drake. 2 days after Mimiron's cat, Time Lost Proto-Drake was mine. Time Lost Proto-Drake isn't a drop chance mount, it is an extremely hard to find rare mount, and I found it in only 1 day of farming. 2 days after Time Lost Proto-Drake, I attempted to get another hard to find mount, and that was the Void Talon of the Dark Star. In only an hour of farming, I found and got the Void Talon of the Dark Star. Some people takes them weeks or even months of farming until they find these rare mounts. 1 day after Void Talon, I got Reigns of the Onyxian Drake. I didn't know what was happening honestly. Later, the same week, I got Reigns of the Vitreous Stone Drake in less than 5 kills. I didn't know that it had around 0.68% drop chance. The day after I got Reigns of the Vitreous Stone Drake, I got Reigns of the Drake of the Northwind, which is also 0.68% drop chance. Some Argus mounts also dropped, but I won't talk about them since they're around 3% drop chance, and they're quite new and there's not much anything special about them. On 29th of March, I got the third hard to find rare mount, and that was the Grey Riding Camel. I came by it by an accident, so basically I've never farmed this mount, unlike Time Lost Proto-Drake and the Void's Talent. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed my first ever video. I want to point out that I wanted to share all this not because I wanted to brag, but mainly because I want to share this experience, since I feel like no player has witnessed that. And what I could say as a message to everyone is that I don't wish you my luck, because at the end you're stuck with so many rare mounts out of nowhere all of a sudden, and you can't appreciate each one of them unless there's a normal time gap between each mount you get, like normal people do.